Welcome to the Ahern Video Podcast. Today I want to talk about expanding a business, growing your business, choosing the right employees, choosing the right successor. And the title of this is Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. It's an interesting process. We have a tendency when we look at a person to automatically assume that based upon how they dress and what they look like, we've already decided what's inside. And in some instances, we have a tendency to judge the outside when we should judge the inside. It was recently I was meeting with a client, and the client said to me, "I've always heard you're very conservative. I've always heard that you do a thorough job. I've always heard that your clients are all your auditors, ex-president and CEO of the trucking companies. But as I see you, you seem to be kind of flashy." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "Well, you've got this gold necklace that you always wear." And it was sending a connotation. So I said, "Let me tell you a story." And I said, "This was given to me on my 21st birthday from my mother. And then subsequently after that, she passed away. We were very poor. I lived in an orphanage for a while, so we didn't have anything. My mom wanted to make sure that when she passed on, I had something to remember her for the rest of my life. I never take this off." When the person heard that, they said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I assumed." And I said, "That's okay. If I would have taken this necklace and I would have put it inside my shirt, would you have thought differently of me?" Initially, yes. But I learned a very important lesson. The important lesson is first impressions can make or break a deal. I was very fortunate that this person was able to be forthcoming. And many people weren't. They'll just look at you, they'll assess you, and they'll say, "Oh, based upon the way this individual looks, I don't want to do business with them." Growing a business, expanding the business, taking the business to the next level. You need people. You need infrastructure. We call it intellectual capital. There is a difference between the way a baby boomer thinks and the way somebody in their 30s thinks. But at the same time, you've heard me continually say that knowledge is power, youth is the future. You can't assume that if you bring a 32-year-old into your business that they're going to do the same things that you did. But what you can assume, if you give them the right tools and you point them in the right direction and they think outside the box, they'll achieve those goals and objectives. It may not be the way you would have done it, but that's my point. No two people are alike. Even when you have identical twins, they're not alike. So don't judge a book by its cover. One of the critical problems I see when we review companies on a daily basis is the founder or the owner or the CEO or the president. They say, "My employees are terrible. They don't do this, they don't do this, they don't do this, they don't do this, they don't do this. And it's their fault that we're in this mess and we have to hire you." And what they're not doing is looking at themselves. So the first thing I ask is, let me see your specific goals and objectives, and let me see the carrot that's out there for each of these individual goals and objectives. Well, we don't have any of those. So you don't tell your people what you expect. "Oh yeah, we tell them. They just never do it." Well, do you set specific guidelines? Do you have meetings? If they're not achieving their goals, you try to find out why. In some instances, if some of the things you're asking for do difficult, do you try to find another path? "Oh, no, we don't do any of that." Well, then what the heck do you expect your employees to do? You're giving them no direction, no time frame to accomplish those goals and directions. And oh, by the way, when people excel at what they do, giving them a paycheck isn't enough. "Well, when I grew up," well, when you grew up, you worked at a company for 40 years, you got your gold watch, great. But that's not how this generation is, and that's not how the next generation is going to be. We have survived for 28 years because we embrace technology. We've survived for 28 years because we keep thinking outside the box. My director of marketing is 32 years old with 3 kids. In fact, we're sitting down with one of our new clients. He's a young guy, and we've been working with him. He says, "Andy, I want to tell you I really enjoy working with you. I appreciate your knowledge. I appreciate your vision. But most importantly, I appreciate that I don't have to deal with you every day." because I feel a little uncomfortable. I said, "Why would you say that?" He said, "Well, I followed your history, and you've done so many things, and you've had so many accomplishments, and you've had so many failures. But you're still around, and I admire that, but I'm finding my way. And when I'm able to deal with Robert, I feel comfortable because Robert's finding his way. You can tell that he's been trained well. You can tell that he loves his job. You can tell where he's headed. But you can also tell you're letting him follow his own path. Now, that doesn't mean I give him carte blanche, go out and do whatever you want and spend my money and don't bring any business in. But the point is, people do things differently, and you have to understand that. I have flex hours in my office. Why do you have flex hours? Well, a lot of the people have kids, particularly the women, and they want to go to the functions and they want to take them to school. So even though I can have very rigid hours, if you want to keep employees, if you want to embrace those employees, if you want them to be long-term employees, if you don't want to have turnover, what do? You flex to their schedules as long as they perform. Now, that doesn't mean that if they don't perform, you keep them on, but the point is, you got to keep changing your business. You got to keep changing your views. You have to have people that are creative, that are full of energy, and you have to embrace youth. Until next time, thank you for attending the podcast.